Just to let you guys know, memberships will be shifting from YouTube to Patreon, as I can actually offer more perks over there and communicate with people a lot easier, and monthly giveaways will start at 10 active members. So thank you to the Sainted Jester for becoming the first grassroots member over on Patreon, and also thank you to Casper Baye and James Das for becoming members of the channel. Thank you to IDK and Flo Lacey for rejoining as members, and another thank you to Flo Lacey for gifting a membership to Simon Wells. If you'd like to become a member, either scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description down below. But with all that being said, let's get on with the video. So I've left a recap of my NRL Round 27 predictions up on screen. I got 6 out of 8 with the wins and 4 out of 8 with the margins. Overall, I'm quite happy with that. As a result, I think that's pretty decent. Now, for the season overall, I'm not too happy with it. I could have been better, and hopefully for next season, I will be. What are your predictions? Let me know in the comment section down below. But let's get on with the first game of this week. Kicking things off in finals, we have the Storm taking on the Bulldogs. Starting with form, the Storm have won 3 in their last 5, losing 2 in a row, and the Bulldogs have won 2 in their last 5. These sides met just a few weeks ago in round 25, and the Storm won 2014. Looking at player availability, the Storm are without Nelson Asfa-Solomona, Jerome Hughes, and Ryan Pappenhausen, all major losses. They will have Falogo, Valepu, Bradley and Howarth all available, but Jonah Pezzett will come back in to start from the bench, and Harry Grant will finally come back in to start at number 9. Nick Kamini will also take the number 1 jersey in place of Ryan Pappenhausen. Now for the Bulldogs, they're without Marcelo Montoya and Bronson Cherry, so that's a big disruption to their left edge attack and defence. Their backline now consists of Renakama, Tuala, Crichton and Wilson, all still solid and reliable options all round. Hayes, Kiraz, Turpin, Morin and Sexton are also included in the squad, but they're only in the reserves for now. Now, I haven't been sold on either team's forward pack in recent weeks. I think they both work hard through the middle, but they aren't exactly finding much success in my opinion, and they're looking fairly easy to contain, so the kicking game will be important for field position. Looking at the halves, if both need a long-range kicking game, you'd trust Burton the most in this game to get the distance on the kicks, so that could be a big advantage for the Bulldogs this week. Where I think the Storm kind of level the playing field is in 2 areas. One is the fact that their backline is a little more settled, and it might be easier for them to kind of move the ball towards the edges, inside their own half, stretch the Bulldogs' defence and gain metres out wide. The other reason is Harry Grant. There's been a lack of strike through the middle since he's been out in the last few weeks, but his ability to exploit weaknesses in the defensive line from the ruck might be unmatched in the world. He adds more yards to sets and adds more line break potential into this Storm side as well. Not to mention the amount of quality defensive work he gets through in a game on top of it. Now, a reoccurring issue with the Bulldogs is how unsure they look when moving the ball around. We'll see some decent execution from time to time, but inside the red zone, they've looked a little unsure of themselves. That seemed to start when they decided to put Toby Sexton out of the team in place of Lachlan Galvin. Now, they started to look like they've figured things out a little bit a few weeks into Galvin starting in the lineup, but they haven't become a better side overall, in my opinion. Now, even with the loss of Hughes for Storm, Wishart has been getting plenty of game time in the halves this season, so they'll be fairly comfortable with this change. With Nick Meaney at fullback, he adds a lot of pace out wide for sweeping runs out the back, but when it comes to, say, change of direction, execution down the short side, or that killer cutout pass, the threat is weakened. Meaney can still do what Pappenhausen does, but it's not at the same level. Now, the Storm have won 9 of their last 10 games against the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs have only won 1 of their last 5 games at Amy Park. And the Bulldogs haven't won a finals game since 2015. Now, while the Storm have already been there and done that countless times in the last decade alone, but they've only won 3 of their last 8 finals matches. I think the start of this game will be determined by which forward pack can find more meters, but I don't really have trust in either to win the battle. But I think one side has a player that can make up for any deficits in the forwards, and that's Storm with Harry Grant. Both have struggled to create as many opportunities as they'd like when they both haven't had their strongest side available, but the Storm have shown this season they're slightly more capable of adjusting, in my opinion. So for a prediction in this one, I'm going to go with the Storm to win by 1 to 12 points, and for a try scorer, I'm going to go with Xavier Coates. Next up, we have the Warriors versus the Panthers. Both have only won 2 in their last 5 going into this. Well, that does include a loss for the Panthers, where they rested their entire squad. These sides also met back in round 16, and the Panthers won 28-18. For player availability, Rocco Berry is out for the Warriors, so Capewell will move to the centres, where he's played a few times this season, and he's done a decent job there as well. Jackson Ford will come back in to play alongside Fisher Harris in the front row, and Wade Egan also comes back in to join them in the front row as well. Now, the Panthers will miss Mitch Kenny, so Luke Summerton will start at 9 this week, and then Liam Martin and Brian Toto also come back into the side for the Panthers. Now, in the last few months, the Warriors haven't been able to get back to the form they had earlier in the year with Metcalf in the halves. To be fair to them, they've had a lot of injuries to deal with. Boyd and Harris DeVita can still at least offer stability with their kicking game, and they can set a high tempo offensively, which they'll seriously need against this Panthers defence. I also think the Warriors have more impact up front though. The impact off the bench feels slightly even, maybe leaning towards the Panthers just based on experience, but with Fisher Harris, Ford, Halasima, Niokore and Clark starting, they've certainly got a decent amount of size in this one. On the flip side, the Panthers have shown for many years now, and still this season, that they're capable of getting into the grind, and they can slow down the ruck, which they'll really need to do this week. They cannot allow this Warriors pack to get quick play the balls too often, or the Panthers will be on the back foot, and I don't know if the Panthers have the pack to work the ball up the field. What the Panthers do have, though, is a group of backs capable of creating opportunities anywhere on the field. They've got Edwards and To'o, who are both important with their return meters and their ability to break lines. McLean has been getting more and more confident as the year has gone on, and his decision-making has improved too. Now the game might have slowed down for him a bit. You could say the exact same thing for Blaise Talangi as well. He's been looking more settled at 6 as the year's gone on. He's leading the attacking edges now, rather than just being a part of it. He's dictating play. And finally, you have Nathan Cleary at halfback, the best big game player in the league. Say what you want about State of Origin, I know all the talking points there, but Cleary is the best big game player in the competition, with his kicking alone, which can change a game. If the Panthers are under too much pressure from the Warriors forwards being too dominant, his kicking can help them out. Now, the Warriors have won 3 of their last 4 finals games that have been played in Auckland, but the Panthers have won 9 of their last 10 games against the Warriors, and the Warriors haven't beaten a top 8 side since round 14, and then the Panthers have won their last 12 finals matches. The Warriors have had a lot of close games recently, but against midfield and bottom teams, while the Panthers' close games are typically against top sides like the Raiders and Storm, whilst looking comfortable against most midfield or bottom teams. So for a prediction in this one, I'm going to go with the Panthers to win by 13+, and for a try scorer, I'm going to go with Brian To'o. Next up, we have the Sharks versus the Roosters. Both have won 4 in their last 5 games. The Sharks are on a 3-game win streak, the Roosters on a 2-game win streak. Both sides have lost to teams recently that they should have beaten. For the Sharks, it was against the Dragons. For the Roosters, it was against the Eels. These sides have already met twice this season as well, each picking up a win when they've been at home, and it's the Sharks at home for this one, and they won more recently in their matchup. In terms of points per game in the last 5, it's fairly close. Now, in attack, the Sharks are at 32.8 points per game. The Roosters are at 36.4. In defence, the Sharks are conceding 15.6 points per game. The Roosters are at 14 points per game. So on both sides in the last 5, points difference-wise, it leans towards the Roosters by just 5.2 points per game. And neither side is missing anyone from the last round. The Sharks have both Britton Nicola and Braden Trindle both available. Nicola is only in the reserves for now, so he may be promoted later in the week. The Roosters don't have any changes to their starting lineup or bench, but they'll have players like Makatoa, Foketi, Rodwell and Sandon Smith all available. Both sides have backlines capable of winning 1v1s and breaking lines, also shutting down 1v1s as well. I think the most reliable defensive option in this game for me is Robert Toya. Very little gets past him, and he's up against Kale Iro, who's still relatively inexperienced. He's done some good stuff this year, but I think Toya will be able to neutralise Iro. On the opposite side, it's Billy Smith that has to deal with the pace and step of Ramian, and I think Ramian can kind of balance things out over there. Then you've got Mulatalo versus Nwangani-Tawaze, which will be so interesting. Mulatalo has the pace on him, but Nwangani-Tawaze can use his height against Mulatalo in the aerial battles, although we do know how strong Mulatalo is in the air as well. That's a very interesting matchup for me. Then we move on to the kicking game. I think Savala and Walker are fine for kicking in the midfield, but I think Trindle and Hines offer more distance and precision with their kicking games. They did miss Trindle last round, the Sharks, and Hines couldn't really find the corners with his kicks as the battle through the middle was fairly even against the Bulldogs to start. Now, I think this could be a very even matchup through the middle to start as well, with Fanua Blake and Rudolph versus Lenu and Collins. That feels quite even to me, and I think White actually gives the Roosters a little bit more of an edge through the middle to start the game, plus the carries from, say, Crichton and his offload potential might just be the difference maker. But just like in the last round for the Sharks, their impact players could change the game. Now, Siwa Wong for the Roosters could be huge for them. Stephen Butcher are both hard workers as well. But the Sharks have a stacked bench, which includes Kafusi, Talakai, Hamlinueli and Hazelton. And Hazelton was a massive difference maker for the Sharks last week. When he came on, he got the Sharks so much further up the field. Hines could actually find the corners at the end of sets a little bit easier, and the Sharks started to bury the Bulldogs inside their own territory. If the Roosters are already losing the battle through the middle to start the game, I think it's game over, honestly. Now, the Sharks have lost all 3 of their finals games that they played against the Roosters, and the Roosters have won 9 of their last 12 games against the Sharks. But the Sharks have at least won their last 6 games at Shark Stadium, and at home, the Sharks have won 10 and only lost 2, which is the second best home record in the league. But the Roosters do also have a positive away form as well. I have been a massive advocate of the Roosters this season. At their best, I genuinely think they can win it all, but this is a very, very tough matchup to start the finals run. So for a prediction in this one, I'm going to go with the Sharks to win by 1-12, but for a try scorer, I'm going to go with Robert Toya. Finally, for this round, we have the Raiders taking on the Broncos. The Raiders have won 3 in their last 5 games. The Broncos have won 4 in their last 5 games. The Broncos are on a 4-game win streak, while the Raiders were on a 3-game win streak, but they lost last time out because they rested a ton of players against the Dolphins. These sides also met way back in round 2, and the Raiders won 32-22. For player availability, the Raiders are just 1 player away from being at full strength. Xavier Savage is the player that's missing, so Jed Stewart will take his spot, and he's already had plenty of game time this year and looked really reliable as well. The Raiders will have their full spine available for Weeks, Strange, Fogarty and Starling, which is huge for them. They'll also have their best pack available with Papali'i, Topany and Horsburgh all starting. The Broncos are still without Mam and Reynolds, but they've been adjusting really well with Walsh at fullback, Walters and Hunt in the halves, and Pakes at 9. Shibasaki will also come back in this week, so having him and Staggs in the backline will be massive for their matchups against Timoko and Chris. Both of them have been playing well this year for the Raiders, but if Shibasaki and Staggs are on it this week, they'll be really tough to stop. Now, given that the Raiders have been able to keep a regular lineup for most of the season, there's more trust in them to be able to execute on a more regular basis, but we've seen with this Broncos lineup that when Walsh gets his hands on the ball more, and they're moving the ball with pace, they can open teams up. So looking at stats in recent games, I won't include the Raiders' last game and the Broncos game versus the Storm because I don't think they're representative of these current sides. So focusing on their 4 last representative games, the Broncos have been scoring significantly more points, scoring 38 points per game compared to the Raiders' 21. In defence, the Raiders claim a win back there, conceding 14 points per game compared to the Broncos conceding 21 points per game. And again, that excludes the Raiders' loss to the Dolphins because of the rested players and the Broncos' loss to the Storm when they lost out on Reynolds and Mam very early on. Now, I do have more trust in the Raiders' ability to work the ball up the field, so a lot of times we could see the Broncos try to pin the Raiders back, but I think they can work the ball up the field either through the middle with the big guys, or they can spread the ball and make the Broncos' edge defenders uncomfortable. So Fogarty might not have to worry about a long-range kicking game too much, and he can just aim for the corners a lot easier to pin the Broncos back. So I do think the Broncos could be under a lot of pressure and the Raiders will have the better territory. But Walsh, for example, has a very good kick on him. He could be helpful in getting the Broncos out of trouble, either when making those sweeping runs towards the edges and possibly breaking lines, or with his kicks. Now, the Raiders have only won 1 of their past 4 finals games, but the Broncos have lost 4 of their last 5 games at GIO Stadium. The Raiders have won 9 of their 10 games at GIO Stadium this season, while the Broncos are 50-50 away from home. So for a prediction in this one, I'm going to go with the Raiders to win by 1-12 points, and for a try scorer, I'm going to go with Ethan Strange. So to recap my predictions for this round, I'm going to go with the Storm to win by 1-12, the Panthers to win by 13+, and then the Sharks and Raiders both to win by 1-12. In terms of win confidence, I'm at 75%. I'm fairly confident with the Storm winning. I'm very confident with the Panthers taking the win. I'm fairly confident with both the Sharks and Raiders winning, but both of those two are tricky for me. In terms of margin confidence, I'm at 80%. For the Storm, Sharks and Raiders games, I can only see them being 1-12 either way. I can't see any team in those matchups winning by a high margin. If they win by 13+, I could only see it being from maybe a 16 or 14 point win. But even that feels a little bit too unrealistic for those matchups. I'm quite confident in the Panthers 13+. Since it's finals, it could be closer, and with the Warriors at home, they could find another level, but I still think the Panthers will have a little bit too much in that one. So there you have my NRL Finals Week 1 predictions. If you guys have your own, please let me know in the comments section down below. But as always, if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Knesset Rugby League content. And if you'd like to become a member, you can do by either scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the description down below. But that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.